this meeting of the HFRA Standards and Governance Committee. This meeting is being held remotely and the members are in attendance via video conferencing. The meeting is being live streamed on the authority's website and it will also be available for repeated viewing. Those participating in the meeting are consenting to be recorded and use of these images for broadcasting purposes. I will begin by naming the members who are in attendance for the public record. We have Councillor Jeff Hockley, Councillor Price, Councillor Mintoff, Councillor Glenn, and I also have Councillor Carter, the authority's chairman, in attendance. And Councillor Carter, please feel free to join in if you wish.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Right, can I ask if there's any apologies for interest and apologies for absence? And I don't think there are, but Jackie?
No, all members are present, Chairman.
Right. I move on to declarations of interest. This is to enable members to disclose to the meeting any disclosable pecuniary interest they may have in any matter on the agenda for the meeting, where that interest is not already entered in the authority's register of interests, and any other pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest in any such matters that the members may wish to disclose. Anybody wish to disclose anything? Good. If we move now to minutes of the previous meeting, which you'll find on page 3 to 8 of your agenda packs. If we go through for accuracy, so page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7. Jackie, you wish to make a statement?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to draw members' attention in relation to minute 111 on page 5 of the pack, referenced a risk assessment champion, just to confirm that this is covered in Councillor Glenn's champion role, so I can confirm that this is resolved now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Glenn, are you happy that that's part of your role on the authority?
Absolutely ecstatic, Chairman.
Good. Well done. So is anybody else, or are you all happy for me to sign the minutes as a true record? Happy. Okay. Thank you. Right. Deputations. Do we have any deputations, Jackie?
No deputations today, Chairman.
Right. Thank you. I have no announcements. So if we move on to the external audit results report, which I think is on page 9 to 62 of your pack. Who's taking us through this?
Chairman, if I may, just before handing over to Kevin and Sarah from Ernst & Young, just to note that so the recommendation says to receive and note the report, but my legal colleague had also reminded me that the terms of reference for the committee also asks you to consider whether or not there are any matters which you wish to refer or recommend to the full authority. So just to have that as an extra recommendation for you to consider. But otherwise, I shall hand over to Kevin.
Thank you. Right, welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And good afternoon, members. So I'm going to start with some high-level messages talking around the report. I'm not going to go page by page through. Sarah will then run through the detailed aspects of the risks we've identified in the audit plan to let you know where we have got to in terms of conclusions in those areas. And then I'll just say a brief few words to summarise the final aspects. So as we've set out in the executive summary of the report, we are substantially complete with the audit of the Fire Authority. We aren't quite yet done, but given the challenges and a very unusual context we're working with this year regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, we do feel that we are in a reasonably good position and we're definitely now on the home straight. We've set out on page 5 of our report, that's page 17 of the report pack, some of the impacts that COVID-19 has had on the audit. The key outstanding item for us regards the second point on the going concern disclosures. When we pick up a set of accounts at the moment, one of the key things that we and a reader wants to know is how has COVID-19 affected things and what future impact might it have? We've been working with the officers to obtain that information, and as of early this week it's now all been provided through to us. So we'll be working through that, and then we need to undertake a mandatory consultation process within EY to ensure the consistency and sufficiency of the disclosure and our work in this area. But that's the key remaining aspect of our work to complete on the audit. We are still considering the final form of the audit report, as we note on page 19 of the report pack. We are considering whether an emphasis of matter paragraph might be required to refer to your disclosures on going concern and potentially also any valuation uncertainties regarding the valuation of property, plant and equipment. Our final judgment will be made when we've completed that work. And I would like to emphasise that this is not a qualification to our opinion. An emphasis of matter only refers to a disclosure that has been properly made and included in the accounts. And if in our judgment, we feel it's important for the reader to be made aware of that information so they actually look at it and understand it in their interpretation of the accounts. I think at the present time, I am probably less likely to do that for property valuations because the majority of your land and buildings are specialised assets and therefore they're less impacted by market fluctuations or uncertainties that COVID-19 has created. For going concern, I'm still making that judgment as we complete the work. When we've completed that work, we should be in a position to sign the opinion on the accounts. However, we might not be in the position to certify the full completion of the audit at that time. The reason is we still don't have our instructions from the National Audit Office regarding the work we have to undertake on the whole of government accounts. Now, we're assuming you're going to be below the threshold as you have been in previous years, but we can't actually confirm that one until we do get the instruction. So hopefully that will come soon and won't cause any undue delay. So those are the key headline messages. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Sarah so she can take you through the key risks in section 2 of our report, starting on page 23 of the report pack.
Thanks, Kevin. So the first risk that we noted in our audit plan that we shared with you back in January was misstatements due to fraud or error. So this is a risk that we identify on every audit engagement, and so it is mandatory. It's not saying that there is specifically a higher risk of management override at the fire authority. So where we focus our efforts in this risk is looking at any journal entries that have been recorded without a valid business purpose, any instances of inappropriate judgment that have been applied, specifically around accounting estimates that are more complex in nature, and any material weaknesses in controls or material evidence of material management override. And our conclusion, while we've looked at this idea, is we've not identified anything that we wish to draw to your attention. If I move to the next page, so on your pack, it's page 24, we've got the risk in relation to valuation of land and buildings. So land and buildings is one of the most significant balances on the Fire Authority's balance sheet, and it does have a number of assumptions and judgments in it. As Kevin's already pointed out, there is a material uncertainty clause that has been included in the valuer's report this year, and this is as a result of COVID-19, and we are seeing that across the board. We have noted a difference when we've done our testing, when we've looked at assets not revalued in the year. This was above our reporting threshold, and we've recorded that as a misstatement, and it was about £600,000. That difference arises on assets that are not subject to the formal revaluation, so they're not subject, they've not been selected for a full revaluation this year. And when management have performed an indexation exercise to ensure that the values on the balance sheet are not materially misstated, they've used indices as at the 1st of April 2019, whereas our view is that that should be done as at the balance sheet date of the 31st of March 2020. So that's where that difference arises, but it's not ultimately material. It doesn't impact our audit opinion. If I move to page 25, we talk through the pension liability valuation here. So the work that we have performed on the pension liability includes looking at the adjustments in respect to McLeod and Goodwin to make sure either that they have been included in the calculation or are ultimately not material to the authority. We've looked at the accounting entries and the disclosures made and we have no issues thus far to communicate to you. We are yet to finalise the last parts of our testing in relation to IAS 19. So that is the work we do at the pension fund for the employers that are part of the scheme. But we do expect to issue those results letters, so we'll be able to conclude on that this week. On page 26, we talk through going concern. There wasn't much I wanted to touch on here because I think Kevin's given you quite a good explanation as to where we are with that. But again, that's something that we are working through and expect to conclude on soon.
Madam Chairman, can I just ask a question on page 25 before we move off of it?
Surely, yes, do go ahead, Councillor Price.
Thank you. Is it on page 25 when it talks about pensions on the right-hand side? What did we do in the first bullet point? It talks about Hampshire Constabulary. Is that a misprint?
Yes, I do apologise. That is a typographical error. It should say the Hampshire Fire Authority. I do apologise.
Thank you.
Well done, Roger.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Can I just ask before you go on as well, Sarah, when you said quite soon, what's your definition of quite soon? Are you talking about days, weeks, months?
Is this in respect to the concluding the pensions work?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm expecting that we're able to conclude that in a matter of days.
Okay.
We were just, there was a couple of, so this year there was a triennial valuation performed on the pension fund, so it's a larger exercise than is performed in normal years, so it's a bit additional audit work that we have to perform. And part of our audit procedures involves reaching out to the individual employers for specific reports. And we need all of those reports back before we can release any of the letters. So while we've got the required reports for the Fire Authority, there were a couple of employers that we were still waiting on, but we've just got one left and we're expecting that this week. It's another firm that is audited by EY, so we don't anticipate any problem in receiving that. So we are expecting to be able to conclude that in a matter of days.
Super, thank you. Councillor Price, you want to come back?
Yeah, if I can, is that when one is talking about pension, is that obviously the pension is a government pension, and therefore the government does the valuations of it. So how do you evaluate whether the government has done a correct or incorrect valuation?
So if I can take this one, Councillor Price, the government set the rules regarding the pension, but the valuation is undertaken by your actuaries, Aon Hewitt. They use certain assumptions that they're told to by the government and other assumptions they make themselves. For example, what do they think the rate of inflation is going to be, the salary increase is going to be, and the rate of return on assets for the local government pension fund. So those are the assumptions that we review because they are the ones that are most significant to the evaluation of the pension liability at the year end. We do that in conjunction with our own experts, and we have no worries or issues to report to you around those assumptions. We find them reasonable and valid this year.
The point I was making, I believe that it's GAD who does the valuation of the pension fund.
So in respect of the numbers that are reported within your accounts, it is Aon Hewitt that perform those valuations. The GAD do get involved at the national level, that is true, but Aon Hewitt take a number of those items and numbers and perform their calculations to provide the number within your accounts.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, Roger. Sorry, Sarah, do carry on.
No problem. I'll just move on to page 34 in your pack on value for money. And just to conclude that we haven't identified any significant risks in relation to value for money, and we have no matters to report to you at this time. And then the last point that I wanted to move on to before I hand back to Kevin is just on page 37, just to highlight to you that we have noted a prior year adjustment that was identified by management when they were preparing for the IFRS 16 implementation. Whilst that has subsequently been deferred, they have noted that there were some leases that had included service costs, which under the code shouldn't have been included. So they have subsequently amended the prior year comparatives to note this difference, which is 11 million. So we are just ensuring that there is adequate disclosure in the accounts for that, and that we're undertaking an internal consultation on that just to conclude that we're happy, but we don't anticipate any significant wording changes in respect of that disclosure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Glenn, sorry, did you want to come in?
It was actually on the last issue that Councillor Price brought up, Chairman. Am I right in saying that GAD stands for Government Actuarial Department? I just thought I'd say that in case members of the public are listening in and wondering what on earth he was talking about.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. Right, sorry, Sarah. Is that you finished?
That's me. I'll just pass back to Kevin for some concluding points.
So just a quick closing remark, Chairman. Yeah, so I've lost my place. Section 9, that was what I wanted to refer to on page 45 of the pack. So as a closing remark, I just wanted to confirm our independence from the Fire Authority and its officers. I think it's important to reiterate that so you can be assured that we have no interest in providing anything other than an independent report to you. And as my very final comment before I break for any further questions, I would like to place on record my thanks to the officers of the authority with their assistance in completing our audit this year. It's very gratefully appreciated, especially in the current circumstances. Happy to take any further questions.
I'm sure that's much appreciated. Thank you. Any questions, members? Councillor Price.
Thank you. On page 45, the audit fee, we have the 1819, 1920 planned fee, but we've got in the final fee for 1920 to be confirmed. Surely that must be available by now to actually put in there.
So as we haven't completed our procedures yet, we're not quite sure how much further work we may yet have to do on the going concern. So our normal process would be to finalise the audit, make sure we discuss any issues with the relevant Section 151 officer first, and then report a fee within the public domain. So that's the process we would normally go through. We're not quite at that point yet, and we will absolutely bring the final fee back to you within our annual audit letter, which we'll report to a subsequent committee.
Okay. You know when we're going to get this final audit letter this year? I know it's been delayed. Do you know when it's all going to happen?
So the annual audit letter would follow the completion of the audit. We were generally obliged to produce those within 30 days, and then we bring that to your next committee.
So by the time we have another meeting, it will all be completed.
That is what I expect. Yes.
Thanks. Rob, did you want to come in?
It was just to reassure Councillor Price that on the fees, so if there are increased fees proposed, as Kevin said, they'll be discussed with me in the first instance. As an authority, we have to make a decision as to whether we accept those fees or not. And if we would decide not to, then effectively it goes back to PSAA to come to a conclusion on those. But on the basis we still have, I think, a disagreement about last year's fees, and PSAA haven't actually concluded on those yet. It's not a quick process.
Okay, right. Councillor Mintoff.
Thank you, Chairman. So the final fees, we've got our next Standards and Governance meeting on the 17th of November, but surely that is beyond when everything should have been finalised, isn't it?
The deadline for the authority to publish their accounts this year, with or without an audit opinion, but hopefully with, is or has been extended to the 30th of November. That's an extension due to the COVID circumstances this year that's been brought in by statute. So we do hope to be finished before then. But just for clarification, we do have, it just in case the worst happens, through to the 30th of November to complete the audit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Glenn.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say I think this is a very thorough audit. It's very professional. I am pleased to see that any corrections have been made about any discrepancies. That was mentioned very early on by Sarah. It shows a very healthy approach. I'm delighted with it, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. Councillor Carter, do you want to say anything before I go to the recommendation?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I would agree entirely with what Jonathan Glenn has just said. I wish to congratulate everybody for all the work that's taken place in difficult circumstances. With regard to the fee situation, it seems to be quite clear to me that it's all set out on page 45, and it's all explained there. So yes, Chairman, I'm very content with this.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Can I take you then to the recommendation on page 11? Oh, before we do the recommendation, is there anything that any member thinks we should be reporting to the full authority as opposed to just accepting the recommendation? No? Okay, let's go to the recommendation then. That the committee receives and notes the external auditor's HFRA audit results report for the year ended the 31st of March 2020. Everyone happy? If you dissent, raise your hand on the thing.
With the one amendment from Hampshire Constabulary to Hampshire Fire.
Well, you're quite right, Roger. Yes, we need to make sure that we're not we're talking about the right service.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Sarah. We look forward to seeing you again shortly. Yes. Right. Thank you. Okay. So feel free to stay or go, because Rob, you're doing the accounts, are you?
Yeah, I'll be doing that, but I suspect they'll stay for that item just in case there's any issues that are raised, Chairman.
Okay. Right, so I think we're on page, is it 69, I think? No, it's probably 66, 67. I need to get some tabs to put on these things. Sorry.
63.
63,
Chairman.
Yeah. 63, right. Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. I think as Kevin has already explained, what should have been a fairly boring year for the accounts, there were no changes to bring in the code, etc., has turned into quite an eventful year. So we obviously had to deal with the COVID impact, which has impacted on the timescales that we've been working to, and as Kevin has explained, the sort of valuations within the accounts and also the going concern statement. You'll notice in the recommendations, as there normally is, there is the recommendation for me to make minor changes to the accounts if necessary. Now, in the past, we've never needed to do that because we've signed everything off on the day. This year, because of that extension to the 30th of November and the fact that Kevin and his team are still completing the audit, there may be a requirement for me to use that. But what I would do in any event is to update the committee on any changes that are made to make sure that you're comfortable with those, because I think we've got the time to be able to do that. But I would do that obviously through email. Just draw your attention to the letter of representations, which is attached as a separate item to the agenda pack. So that's just our assurances that we give to the auditors to make sure that effectively we have declared everything that we should and that we've done everything in line with good practice. And obviously the accounts themselves are appended at Appendix 1. So that was probably about a week's ago version. So there will be changes to that, which will be picked up after the event. But rather than go through all of those changes, as I said, what I would suggest that we do is at the point that the auditors sign off the final version of the accounts, I'll provide a summary to you of any changes that have been made. But certainly at the moment, the things that we're picking up are pretty minor and don't impact on the overall position for the accounts. So happy to take any detailed questions on the accounts themselves or about the process, Chairman.
Thank you, Rob. Right, any questions, members? Gosh, this is unusual. Councillor Carter, can I just ask you, I see that you've written an introduction, which I've now lost. Yes, I've got it on page 72. Are you happy with the accounts? Well, I don't think I'm muted. Councillor Carter, are you still muted?
I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Yes. you rightly point out that there is an introduction from myself. Indeed, I'm very happy with the accounts, and it's another opportunity for me to congratulate Rob Carr and his team for all the work involved this year in very difficult circumstances. And it's not over by any means, is it? We don't know whether we're going to get a one-year settlement, and it probably is going to be a one-year settlement. But there's a lot more work to be done. But I've got nothing further to add, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Carter.
I would say that I have heard it is to be a one-year settlement, but Rob, you might have heard differently.
So my understanding is that actually the government are still very keen to try and do a 3-year settlement if they are able. So whilst there's quite a lot of speculation at the moment, the government is still keen to do a 3-year settlement, because obviously the public sector has had a bit of a deficit of forward planning, and at such an uncertain time, you know, we really do need that certainty, good or bad. So we're still fingers crossed, hoping that we might get a 3-year settlement.
Good, thank you. Right, members, any questions, or is everyone happy with the accounts? Sharon.
Thank you. With regards to the settlement, sort of 1 or 3 years, obviously we're hoping it's going to be 3 years. When are you expecting that? And is it likely to before we have these accounts signed off, completed and signed off?
So I'm not sure the settlement has any particular impact on the accounts. So we're expecting, if there is going to be the CSR, that it will probably be November time, which will then feed into the provisional local government finance settlement, which I did hear, possibly for the first time ever in my 35-year career, may not now be released until January, the first time it's ever been released in the new year, which will make budget setting a rather quick affair to put together. But we'll deal with that if it happens.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for very comprehensive accounts.
Anyone else? Councillor Glenn.
Right, I just put my hand up. Yeah, I just want to say I also like to thank Rob for an assiduous report. I have to say almost perfect, because there's such a thing as a perfect report, but for which we should all be very grateful. And I'm very happy to see this through the process. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. Right, members, if I take you to the recommendation then, that the statement of accounts for 2019-20 attached to Appendix 1 be approved, subject to any final amendments reported at the meeting, that the Treasurer be given delegated authority to approve any minor amendments to the statement of accounts if required, and that the letter of representations be considered and signed by the Chairman on behalf of the committee. Can we add? No, that's fine. Is everyone happy with those recommendations?
Yeah.
Everyone happy. Thank you. Rob, thank you so much. You must think that you've done all this work, and actually we're just grateful.
So I think it's certainly better for it to go through without event, Chairman. So thank you for your comments. I'll pass those on.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Jackie, do you want to stop the recording?
Yes, can I just request that the broadcast is now stopped, please? I'll confirm when it's